Hello and welcome back to my channel, Emily's Creative Life. Today is day 7 of my 2020 Valentine card series. I'm sorry this is coming late and I won't be able to get all 14 videos up like I wanted to. Life has been busy and kind of getting in the way, but I will be uploading at least a couple more. Today's card was fun. I did some alcohol marker coloring. I'm not very good at it, but it's always fun to do. So here I'm using a stamp set by Richard Garay, and I will be stamping that image onto some Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock using some Memento Tuxedo black ink. I stamped that down a couple of times to make sure that it was nice and black. And then when I finished with that, I will be using my alcohol markers. This first one is a Spectrum Noir marker, CR5. That is the darkest shade that I'm using for the note coming out of the envelope. And then my Spectrum Illustrator marker, this one's AP1, and I will be blending that from the CR5. And then this last one is PP1 of that same Spectrum Illustrator marker, and that's the lightest shade. And I will just blend it all out, trying to get as smooth of a blend as possible. And then I use some Winsor and Newton markers, the cool grays, CG2, CG3, and CG4. Just trying to put in the shadow where I think it might be on the edges of the envelope, and then under where that flap is from coming up from the bottom. So after I finished with placing down all of those colors, I am using my colorless blender and going over everything that I've colored to try to just kind of soften all of it up and see if I can get a little bit of a smoother blend. And when I finished with that, I use my coordinating, another stamp from that stamp set, the I Love You, and I stamped that on that note coming out of the envelope using that same Memento Tuxedo black ink, and I'll stamp that down 3 times to make sure that it's nice and dark. Here I'm using that coordinating die and then running that through my sizzix big kick machine. And while I have my machine out, I will be using an embossing folder by Darice and some white cougar cardstock. It's just got some hearts and little dots going at a diagonal. And here you can see how that looks. When I finished with that, I used my tonic paper trimmer to trim that down just a little bit. I wanted to have a white border around it on the card base when I place it down. I'm using my EK Tools scoring board and my Teflon bone folder to crease another piece of that cougar cardstock at 5.5 inches to create a top folding A2 size note card. And here I'm using some Tombow liquid adhesive on the back of that embossed panel, and I will adhere that down onto the card base, just leaving that little white border around the edge. And I've got a piece of black cardstock here, and I will be using my antistatic powder bag on there and using some Versamark ink to stamp down the sentiment that says "Just a Note to Say." I will be heat embossing that in white. I couldn't find my Wagner heat gun, so I'm just using another one that I have in my stash as a backup. So I go ahead and heat set that, and then I use my Tim Holtz Ideology ruler, and I'm using the side that has the metal on there, and my craft knife to cut down that sentiment strip. I cut it a little bit crooked, so I went back and fixed that. So when I finished with that, I try to decide where I want everything placed on the card, and then I add some foam tape to the back of the sentiment strip and to the back of that envelope with the note sticking out. When I finish adding the foam tape, I remove the release paper and then position those onto my card. When I'm happy with the placement, I go ahead and press those down firmly, make sure that they are adhered well. And I'm using a T-square ruler to line up that sentiment strip, make sure that it's nice and straight on there. I'm then using my Wink of Stella clear glitter brush pen to add some shimmer to the pink note coming out of the envelope. And I did stamp the sentiment in a dye ink, so I was trying to be careful with it to avoid the sentiment so I don't smudge that ink. And then I'm using some Distress Collage Medium in the matte finish to adhere down some iridescent pearls on the card that are placed kind of randomly. And that finishes the card for today. I absolutely love how this one turned out. I don't use embossing folders as often as I should, but they give such a fun result. I love how this one turned out. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be back with day 8 soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye.